right, and welcome to the Courtenay Turner podcast. I'm your host, Courtenay, and I'm super passionate about moving and thinking. On this show, we are going to dive into all things health, fitness, personal development, lifestyle, and political sociocultural. I've always been fascinated by people, and I love learning from the experiences and stories of others. This has been a treat for me, and I hope this is enjoyable and useful for you. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or any way that I can make this a better experience for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Welcome to the Courtenay Turner podcast. I am here today with Brian Tyree. He is the author of Ghost Trail. It's available on Amazon.com. Brian, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I've been better. So yeah, before we hopped on, we were talking about how this is really affecting people, all the injustice that we're seeing. I think that I personally am feeling a little bit depressed. Depressed. I vacillate between depressed and really angry. And I think that, depression typically stems from this feeling of hopelessness. It's like you don't have control, you don't have any power. And I think with all this injustice that we're seeing between, the election, that there was clearly so much fraud and they wouldn't even look at the cases. And now that it's been certified and we have Biden in office, all these states are all of a sudden saying, oh yeah, we'll look at the evidence now. Or, oh yeah, those election laws were illegal, unconstitutional. The timing couldn't be more convenient. It does make you feel like the whole system's rigged. And now what we're seeing with GameStop, and it's always rigged against the little guy. And I can't. I'm so overwhelmed with all of it. How are you?
It can be depressing and powerless, and I'm give you a feeling of hopelessness and powerlessness. And so I've definitely turned to my faith in it and basically lifted it up to God. And but yeah, it is. There are a lot of
people are saying that, but that's being attacked as well. I mean, we're seeing a tremendous attack on religious and faith and religious institutions. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the election fraud, though, I do agree, and I do believe that there was massive fraud in the swing states, where I don't think it was massive across the country, but those patterns that they outline that seem to happen in these major swing states of these votes, these votes coming in the middle of the night that either were, like I think in Philadelphia in one precinct were 100% for Biden, like 100,000 votes that are 100% for Biden. And there's a huge list. It's almost like an overwhelming list, which makes it hard to focus on one thing. So for example, Nevada, Georgia, and I think they all had like thousands of voters that were registered in other states that voted in those states.
Right.
And even more. And I have a theory though, why it wasn't looked into, especially in red states. Well, in blue states, my theory is that the blue, the governors, the judges, and the secretaries of state who investigate it, they just shrugged it off in the blue states. And in the red states, the reason it got shrugged off is I think it's such a scandal that they don't want that on their record, right? They would rather shrug it off and just certify than be the one that was in charge of the state where this massive that's unprecedented in our country. Right. I think it's kind of like, it's the same thinking that Barr had and other people, and I think Republicans in general, they're more concerned about our image and like why Hillary wasn't prosecuted for her prima facie crimes that are you can read from WikiLeaks and all our emails that are definitely there.
Right.
It's like Republicans have this philosophy that if it's going to make the country look bad. Well, and Democrats, they don't care how bad we look. They're going to they're going to make up for it to go after Trump. That's something that's disheartening to me in all of this, is the lack of backbone from Republican leaders who are more afraid of the optics and how it's perceived toward our country than pursuing justice. And I'm concerned about the whole Barr investigation too. Well, I mean the Durham investigation, right. And the one news that came out today was the probation for Kleinsman who was an FBI lawyer who altered a document in order to get the FISA warrant to spy on Trump. And or Page 2, that could have put Carter Page behind bars. It could have for years and years, and they let him off with probation and 400 hours of community service. It's insane. He altered a document. Of all people, he's an FBI lawyer. He knows that's a crime, and he pled guilty. He pled guilty, and they still let him off with probation. And part of the reasoning was that, oh, he's already suffered from losing his job and from the media exposure. And meanwhile, they don't care at all about the negative media exposure towards Trump and towards Carter Page and the other people that they victimized through the scandal.
It makes my blood boil, literally. And then they go and arrest Brandon Straka. He did absolutely nothing wrong. There are no grounds, and they literally just it's like Nazi Germany.
I thought that story was a hoax until I saw it in another.
I wish it was a hoax. No, it's real.
Have they released them? That's the meme, the guy that created the memes, right? That or shared.
No, that's another one, and that's
what's the Straka story
of that as well. No, Brandon Straka. Do you know who he is of the walkaway movement?
Sounds familiar. The walkaway guy. Yeah,
he created the walkaway movement. And so they're claiming that he's a domestic violent extremist or domestic terrorist, or I can't keep up with the terms, to be really honest. But they because of him being at the Capitol on the 6th, but he did not incite violence. He did absolutely nothing wrong. He was exercising his First Amendment right, and they've arrested him. And they're doing it to make a statement because they want to go after anybody who exercises their constitutional rights. And it's an absolute assault on our Constitution.
Yeah, and I think that's what's fueling a lot of people's depression on the right, depression and despair. And
it's not just people on the right. It's anybody who's a true patriot and who understands the principles upon which this country is founded.
I think that's one of the reasons why many on the right are feeling that sense of hopelessness. But what I wanted to say is that when those kind of things happen, I think we just need to pay attention to how it plays out, because hopefully, if they can get indicted, they can get arrested or whatever. But if the justice system works, it will get vetted, and it will. I mean, let's see how it plays out. Because my point is, I think a lot of people on the right that are feeling this despair and hopelessness are projecting things into the future, and that is the definition of anxiety, right? Or depression, of projecting things in the future that may not happen, worries in the future.
Right.
So I mean, part of me wants to say, let's see how it plays out.
So normally I would agree with you, but I actually think that's really the problem. I think the problem is people on the right have so much faith in our constitutional process. We have faith in our courts, as we should, but it's been proven that process is not working. That process has been corrupted. That's why we're feeling or I'll speak for myself, it's part of why I'm feeling so much anger and so much despair, is because we've seen that it is corrupt. We've seen that it's not working the way that it was designed to work. And so I don't actually think that we should just sit back at this point and wait and see. I think we should pressure, our legislators, pressure, the lawmakers, pressure our representatives in Congress who are not serving us, and tell them that, we want justice. We demand justice. It should be consent of the governed. This is not consent of the governed. Where is the consent?
Right. And I think that's the powerlessness that people feel, because, I mean, we're always pressuring our leaders, right? That's always happening.
I don't know that we always are. I think that we should be holding them much more accountable than we actually are. Yeah.
Right.
That's my
thing. I mean, I think with social media, that gives us a new outlet to, speaking for myself, I have always been, since social media, pressuring my leaders, emailing them, that type of thing, calling their offices.
Yes.
Especially, especially like the liberal ones here in California, like Schiff and those people. So I guess my point is, like, because these things are, this corruption is at such a high level, there is a sense of powerlessness. And there is, well, so this is where I think like theology comes in. For me, theology comes into it, because there are things that we can't control. We can pressure people, uh, just like the election, being stolen from us. We can't go back in time and control that. Yes, we can change it moving forward. And I think the people that we need to pressure are the state legislators who can make those changes. But in terms of moving forward, and I the other part of my point is, I think there's a hysteria that because these individuals are targeted, and the guy that shared the memes, and I guess Brandon,
Mhm.
uh, because they're arrested. What I'm saying is, let the justice system play out. It's up to those people that arrested him to prove. They have the burden of proof, right? So, okay, yeah, it's corrupt that they got arrested, and it's corrupt that Roger Stone got arrested by, a military squad, basically a platoon, an armed platoon, right?
Yeah.
But when the justice system played out, I mean, he got pardoned, but they didn't have anything on him, right? So that's what I'm saying. For these like smaller ones where they got arrested for exercising free speech.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. Let the justice system play out. Yeah, it's wrong that they got arrested, but I don't believe they are going to be indicted for it. So that's what
I
I mean by
really hope you're right, but you
that's
do.
what I mean by let's wait. We can't do
I
anything.
don't
We
think that
can't
we
do
should
anything
wait. I
anyway.
think that
What are we gonna do in their case? What are we gonna do to protect this guy with the memes? Nothing. We can't do anything.
I think there's a lot we can do, actually. I
Oh,
think,
tell me, what can we
circle
do?
of wagons. I think that people need
In
to
that
speak
those
out.
specific cases, what can we do? It's out of our hands, and that's where I'm talking about, like, theology. That I believe
Well,
God is still in
I
control
mean,
of
I
everything,
think
but we
people
have to
can
trust in
speak
God.
out. I think people can exercise their, the freedom of speech that we still have today, and speak about the injustice of it. I
Yeah.
think that we can make examples of where, the true domestic terrorists and violence has occurred. I mean, nobody was making any kind of fuss when Antifa and BLM were literally burning down buildings over the summer, literally killing people. That was just mostly peaceful. But
Yeah, yeah.
somebody, what happened on the 6th was actually mostly peaceful.
Exactly.
And three,
And they were escorted in. They were escorted in by police.
oh, I know, it was a
Police
tour.
didn't escort the
It was a
rioters and
scenic
looters
tour.
and arsonists. Police didn't escort the rioters, looters, and arsonists last year.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. Why were police escorting people into the Capitol? What kind of
Right.
invasion is that?
Why aren't more people talking about that? It really was a scenic tour. They were moving the velvet ropes aside.
They stayed within the ropes. Yeah, they stayed
Yeah,
within the velvet ropes.
exactly. And they're not talking about the fact that 3 of those deaths were health related. I think there were 2 heart attacks or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
I don't know if I've ever like ran last week. Did you see his interview with Stephanopoulos where he called
oh,
out? Oh, it's awesome. You have to watch it.
okay.
He smacked down Stephanopoulos, calling him out that there was voter fraud. And then recently he had an article where he said that Kamala Harris, Maxine Waters, Cory Booker, and someone else, some other senator, should also be impeached for inciting riots if you're going to impeach Trump. And Trump didn't incite a riot either. You can look at as you know, I'm sure, you look at his transcript.
I was there.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. What was your experience?
I was there. There was
Did you
no violence being incited by Trump.
How
I mean,
close were you to the Capitol?
I never, I didn't get to the Capitol till much later because of what happened. So
Okay.
I was at
Where
the
were you?
Ellipse. So I was at the Ellipse, and so if you're not aware, what happened at the Capitol happened while Trump was still speaking at the Ellipse.
Yeah, and it was planned before he spoke.
Yeah. But there was no violence being incited. He actually said people should go and peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights and let their voices be heard. That's what he told us. He did not say go and storm and riot, and there was no inciting of violence at all. If anything, the mood was actually quite somber. It was a very cold, gloomy day. And it was not what was, forecasted. The weather forecast was much higher. It was said that it was going to be sunny, yes, it was DC. So, I mean, it wasn't like sunny California, warm, but it was much, much colder than predicted. And it was a very, cloudy, windy day. People had been, I myself had been up since 5 a.m. to get there and to be able to see him. I did make it up to the front, seating area. But that's because I had gotten up so early. And
how far were you from him?
Pardon? I'm sorry?
How far were you from him?
I think it was maybe at 7 rows. 7 rows. I was actually inside.
How far is the ellipse?
Pardon?
What's the distance from the? What is the distance from the ellipse to the Capitol?
It's. I think it's a little over a mile.
Okay.
But at the ellipse, there was, my guesstimation is somewhere over 1 million, like 1.5 million people.
Wow.
Yeah. I know that even Trump, underestimated, and he said, oh, there's a few 100,000. It was, you have to understand that, when you go to a concert and you're going around the, the gated.
The turnstiles and all
yeah,
that.
Exactly. Before you go into security, that's what this was like. And it was hours of people just standing. Wow. And it was just, piled so far back. So when we were leaving, think about this. It takes a long time to weed through that many people and for a mass group like that to walk a mile. It's not like a mile sprint, yeah, so there was that, but so by the time he was still speaking and the mood was quite somber. He had just gone through, I don't know if you saw it, but like the litany. Okay, yeah. So he went through
his running down the fraud.
Yes, exactly. Amazing, he really went through the numbers, and just one state and one county after the next. And most of us who are patriots had heard all of this, and it was really, I think, frustrating and infuriating just to hear this over and over, just the injustice of all of these statistics. And it was also freezing cold, and we've been standing there for hours. I'm not kidding, hours. So this was not let's go storm the Capitol kind of a mood. I'm sorry, it just wasn't.
And it didn't look that way on TV either.
And it was interesting because he started the speech 3 times because because the microphone didn't start. Like, I don't know what happened. I have my theories, but like, and maybe it was just a glitch, but 3 times, and I could see his whole energy drop. That when he finally could speak, and the microphone was actually on. So it was, I'm just setting the scene for you. This was not a high energy, let's incite violence kind of a speech. It was, here is the injustice of what has occurred. Here are the facts. I want everybody to be made aware, and then, yes, go over and make your voices heard. We have the right to peaceably assemble, and, go over to the Capitol and let them know to do the right thing by the American people. So yes, they had, stormed the Capitol before he had finished even speaking. And I was going to go back to the hotel first and then head over. But, by the time I was even like not even back to the hotel, just like walking back, it had already all gone down at the Capitol. So I made it over there around like 4 just to go and see the aftermath.
Yeah.
And at that time it was, pretty, I was just looking from, the distance at seeing what was there. But yeah, I think that just the timing of all of that speaks volume, because if this were really planned by Trump supporters, then the timing could not be worse. There is no way anybody because it impeded the whole constitutional process. And Trump was still speaking. If you were really a Trump supporter, you were listening to Trump. You weren't marching on over to the Capitol.
Yeah,
it just, the timing of it makes absolutely no sense. This was clearly staged.
Yeah.
And that too is really infuriating. The injustice of that, and then to have it pinned on Trump supporters when it was clearly staged by people who were not supporting the constitutional process.
Right.
Yeah. So that was my experience. What
Yeah.
was it like watching the speech? What was your perception of everything?
My perception was that that I did sense energy there and like the support of Trump during his speech.
Sure.
And I mean, his speech was really clear minded. And when he laid out all the different
Mm-hmm.
fraud and that kind of thing, it was good to hear the list from him
Yeah.
because one of his specialties is marketing and messaging. And so to hear him lay out all the different instances, one after the other,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have that clip, you should, when you edit this, you should throw that in there. I would like to see the edited clip. I've never seen the edited clip anywhere, but to go back and watch that.
But
But
the
yeah,
edited
and
clip, which
I mean, just an edited clip of him laying out all those,
okay.
all the instances. Yeah, I haven't seen that anywhere. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube. But anyway, I enjoyed his speech and continued watching it, and then watch people move over there. And I think I might have tuned off or turned away. And then when I came back with on, it's like, oh wow, like riot, breaking news, riot. And that's what I mean. Like on TV, they were making it sound like it was riot and fires burning and just like completely horrible. And then the images behind it are people waving. It's in front of the Capitol, people waving flags and Trump flags, and people look happy.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is. There's no burning. There's no looting.
No, and families. There were children there. I mean, I don't think I would have brought, if I had kids, children to that kind of an event, but there were, and there were, elderly people, disabled people. I mean, it was like, I don't want to trivialize it, but in a sense, it was like a concert. It was like a festival. It was patriots
Yeah.
showing their patriotism. And
And
to add to it, the music was actually incredible. Yeah, whoever did that soundtrack, it was very intentional, but it was
and
wonderful.
here's another aspect. Here's another aspect of the general injustice we're talking about is where's the forensic analysis of it? You think with such a horrible storming, we would already have a forensic analysis of exactly what happened. So there has to be surveillance cameras of the first people that broke in. Where is that investigative journalism from the left even, who are claiming this is a riot? And that's a problem that I think has existed. It's a pattern of the injustice that goes back to the bad polling of 2016. Nobody ever did anything about how bad the national polls were in 2016, right? Everybody got it wrong. And then nothing changed. And I kept waiting for some investigative journalist to do an analysis of why it was so bad. And nothing changed. It happened again in 2020. And I'm afraid this election fraud, without the forensic analysis and investigation, nothing is going to change, in 2 years and in 4 years until they do this. And so my hope is that through this now impeachment process in the Senate, now Trump and his lawyers have the opportunity to defend themselves.
Yes.
And so I hope they do. I hope this truth gets revealed.
Yes.
Some forensics analysis that proves, like you were saying, that the people broke in while Trump was speaking, and then it was organized before it, and then it gets on the record with everybody watching these hearings, right? Because otherwise,
the FBI did say that they
left
know
isn't going to do it. Yeah, the left isn't going to do an analysis, and the FBI never reveals what the investigations are. And it's the same thing with the voter fraud and all that, where is like it's happening, like you said, in Virginia and Arizona. And I don't know what the scope is, but I think in Arizona, I just read before our podcast that what they're doing is they're auditing the machines.
Yeah.
And so I want to know where the audit is of the ballots and the envelopes and the audit of the voter rolls to make sure everybody was registered and
all of it
in Arizona and not registered. Everything should be audited.
Without doubt.
That's something that is, I think, willfully absent by the left and the mainstream media. The lack of a care to investigate any of this because it's all for their political party.
Yep, I so agree. I just want to add, though, that the FBI did say that they have evidence that this Capitol raid was planned. They knew about it long before. So
Of
again,
course,
though,
and that's what I'm saying.
it
Yeah,
begs the
that
question, like,
evidence
why
should
didn't
be
they
in the
do anything
public
about
domain.
it?
Right.
They had a
Well, I mean,
warning. Why didn't they do anything?
remember this when the Sarnow brothers got caught, just the whole event when it happened in real time. We we got when they were being tracked down, and we saw the real time video of the infrared images from the helicopter, when they found them in the boat and all of that. So that kind of thing investigative journalism is happening in real time, and so we see the evidence as it's happening. And then the documentaries and the reports after, how they caught them with the surveillance cameras on the street and shops and how they check all that. Why haven't we seen any of that type of thing from Congress? We haven't seen any of that type of stuff, and it has to be there. I'm sure Congress has cameras all over the place,
You
right?
would think,
And
right? I
and
can't
all
imagine.
the cell phone, all the cell phones there, and that type of thing. It reminds me of the Las Vegas shooter, that how that got swept under the rug, how there's never been a forensic analysis of that. I'm really suspicious, and I have my theories about that too.
Yeah.
And I saw one Twitter post where he was at a Bernie event or something like that. I don't know if it's legit, but I remember seeing that. And it's really suspicious that we don't know more about his motives in that either.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's becoming so incredibly, maddening, because I think we've always we've seen little instances of this where things are not being fully revealed, things are not getting, justice isn't being served. But now the scale, the magnitude is so astronomical that and they're not even trying to hide it. I mean, like with what just happened with GameStop. I mean, it's right in front of our faces that they're literally rigging the system right in front of our eyes, and they're like, haha, you can't do anything about it. And I think that is just what is so unconscionable, and so it's just so infuriating to me.
Yeah, when you called earlier, I was watching Charles Payne lay into. It was awesome laying into Sandra Smith about that, because she was kind of defending Wall Street, and he's somebody that I've been watching that has been tracking it pretty well,
Okay.
and has a good grasp on it. So yeah, I have to go back and watch, look for that on YouTube now, because I missed part of his when he went off. I'm sure it'll go viral because he really went off.
I'll have to look for that. Or if you find it, send it to me. Definitely.
I will, yeah.
But I don't know how this can be defended. I think that's the problem, is that, it's just like the fraud. I've heard so many people say, oh, yeah, that there's always fraud. That's fine. Really? How is that fine? Why aren't people more, incensed by that?
Yeah. Did you see any of Cuomo's press conference today?
No.
When they were asking him, because apparently they said that there's new numbers out about the nursing home deaths and that kind of thing. And so there was a press conference, and he got on and just lied through his teeth, blame the feds, and that's how they get away with it. There weren't any follow-up questions. There weren't any questions about Trump sent over the hospital ship there, and he helped build up the Javits Center, and all those thousands of beds were empty at the time that Cuomo was sending the nursing patient, COVID patients, forcing them to nursing homes, right? Why didn't he send them to the ship? Why didn't he send them to the Javits Center? It's all politics. He didn't want to, make Trump look good, so he kept those empty. The Javits Center was virtually empty. That hospital ship, I think it was Mercy, that went to New York, was empty, and that's why. And now he's of how they get away with it, because they lie through their teeth about it, and they can get away with it, and the media is on their side, and that's I think at the heart of all of this corruption.
And big tech is on their side too. That's a huge problem, and we see with California. I mean, Newsom now opening things up, very convenient. The restaurant board is suing him. Oh, yeah. Well, now the ICU beds are more available. There's a huge uptick in availability of ICU beds, which is not true, by the way. There's actually less availability. If anybody cared to actually look at the numbers, that has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that he's being sued and that there has been a change of power.
Well, and also the recount, the petitions are reaching.
There's that as well.
Yeah.
He's very close to being recalled. I really hope something happens with that, because there's no reason for him to be in office. He's killed so many jobs. He's killed businesses. There's more homelessness. The crime rates have gone up. He's done nothing to serve.
Yeah, of course, which is expected. He's related to Pelosi.
Right. Pelosi and Garcetti, it's just an oligarchy.
And today I read that in LA, the restaurants, outdoor dining is opening up. But then I read something that these outdoor dining establishments can't have TVs.
Yes.
Crazy. Yeah. What is the purpose of that? They don't want people watching sports events or what? Or they don't want them watching the news?
Yeah, right. I don't know what the logic behind that is. But what about all the sports bars? Like, the whole point of the sports bar is you go and you watch the game, right?
And what sports are happening now? There's the Super Bowl in a week.
I know.
But everything else, nothing else has a real big draw for sports bars right now.
No, it's definitely killed that. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see with the Super Bowl what happens. Yeah.
There's a huge sports bar by me that I go to, and I don't know how they're going to deal with that. No TVs. All the TVs are going to be off, and they're going to expect customers to come there anyway.
Yeah, there's no point. I'd love to hear what the logic behind that is. That just seems totally ludicrous. I'm sure there's a motive. I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and maybe sports bars, and maybe they're concerned that more people are going to congregate if you have TVs on, and they're not going to socially distance. But even at these sports bars, they are socially distanced, because I went to them, before everything was locked down. There still are social distance guidelines in there in the restaurants. Well, so I don't get it.
I mean, even all of that is just truly absurd. Now they're saying you need to wear double masks because one mask is good enough. So now you should wear double, triple. I decided I'm going to start the High Horse Mask Company, and it'll be like Lego masks. So when you want, extra moral superiority, you snap another mask on. And then when you develop hypoxia and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe, you can unsnap so that you can get some air and not die.
Yeah, none of it is backed by science. The restaurant's opening.
Well, and that was the ruling. So that's why he's being sued, because the judge ruled that there was absolutely no scientific merit for the closing of the restaurants.
Yeah, in LA, only 3% of the COVID spread comes from restaurants. Most of it comes from people's homes. And
right.
The same with schools.
So let's lock people down more so they spend more time in their homes.
Exactly. And the same with schools. There's virtually no spread in schools. Children don't catch it. They rarely transmit it, or it's really low. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me heartsick. It really does. They're the ones who keep saying follow the science. So I posted a joke about my whole High Horse Mask Company, and someone got very, very upset and told me that I was discouraging people from wearing masks, and this was really amoral and I wasn't following science. So of course I posted direct evidence from the WHO saying you don't need a mask, that masks are ineffective, and right off the WHO. And what did they do? They attacked my character because told me I'm immoral and I'm causing deaths. I just posted and I'm anti-science. I literally just posted the science. I posted several scientific studies, but somehow I'm anti-science.
Yeah, I remember when the WHO and Fauci were telling us that masks don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
In the beginning, yeah. And I remember when it first came out, like I did my own research. Like I Googled the coronavirus.
Wow, you did your own research. Amazing. Uh,
No, I researched masks and what the size of particles they block and the size of the coronavirus particles. So an N95 mask will block particles much smaller than the coronavirus, right? And it blocks them to 95%. So even larger, particles like the coronavirus will get blocked at a higher rate. And surgeons' masks are only about 50%, right? And the cloth masks, the scale go down from there.
right.
But no, nobody wants to follow that science. Like you said, they don't listen to the real science. But what I wonder is, like, beneath all of that, like why people's minds are wired so differently that one person will see the science and another person will see it in a completely different way. It's really bizarre. Like the left and the right mind are wired so differently
So
that
differently.
they see things like so differently. And I think that the left is actually wrong on science on almost all things, including climate change, abortion, gender. They're the ones not following science, and we're called the science deniers.
I know, I know. I think because they really are indoctrinated. They're so tuned into the mainstream media, which are really just agent propagandists. It's not even media. It's not.
But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's something in the mind that their minds are just different, because many of these people they don't follow the news that much on both sides. They have their beliefs in their mind, and some of the beliefs are proven true on either side, or they have intuition or suspicions or whatever. But a lot of the people on the left, they don't. If they did follow the news, if they did follow the science, they would come to the same realizations that we do.
Sure.
But it's just something about human minds are just, they're wired like polarly. It's just intriguing to me how they can be so different and look at a topic so differently, or not see them with the same kind of clarity.
Right.
It's weird. And I don't think it's an indoctrination. I just think it's more of that knee-jerk reaction that I think the left has, because they don't look at the data, right?
Right.
And they just go with what I think it's maybe the feelings, the emotions over the analytics or something like that.
Yeah. And
I mean, I don't know what the reason is, but it's intriguing to me how people's minds are, while they see things so fundamentally differently and that type of thing.
fascinating. And there are studies, Jonathan Haidt has done a lot of work on this. Jordan Peterson has done some work on it. And there are personality differences between the left and the right. And one of the big ones is the, compassion. It's the agreeableness. So people who are on the left tend to score very high on agreeableness. Of course, agreeableness bifurcates. It bifurcates into politeness and compassion. And people on the left tend to score very high on compassion. Now, a lot of people tend to think of compassion as like this nice, warm, fuzzy type of, a trait, a personality trait. However, the analogy I tend to like to use is like a mama bear. So some, women tend to score, statistically speaking, there's always exceptions for every rule. But women tend to score higher on compassion, mostly because they're tending to the infants, right? And so you need to be very tuned into their needs, their wants, and what's going on with them. However, think about how a mama bear reacts when her child, her infant, is being threatened or in danger of some sort. They're not so nice, are they? Right? They're very they get ferocious. They're protecting their child. And that you see across the animal kingdom. That's not unique to women or to humans, but I see the parallels with like the social justice warriors, right? They're very protective and compassionate towards that group, that quote unquote victim group. And I put victim in quotes because most of these people are not victims, we're individuals, and you can't label a whole group as being a victim group, I don't believe. But they get very passionate, and they're not nice. They're ferocious in their protection of these so-called victim groups. And that's where the compassion score is very high, typically on the left. The politeness, and this is where I think that tends to be much higher for people on the right. And this is where I think we see the frustration of people on the right seeding constantly, wanting to be liked. And so they kowtow, and they don't fight back the same way. And a lot of that stems from they want to be polite. They don't want to ruffle feathers. So there are personality traits that, tend to lend themselves. They go through all of it, like the openness traits, but I think the compassion is the one that we see. The other one is conscientiousness. So people on the right tend to score much higher on conscientiousness. So,
but it's kind of intriguing that they would score that high on compassion, where I've seen studies that when it comes to actual charity, the right gives more. If you look at all the politicians on the right, the top politicians, in the study that I saw, the most generous politician, and this was before Trump, this study, Dick Cheney gave more to charity than any other politician. And one of the lowest on that scale was Biden.
I would actually say that Trump did, because he gave up his salary, but.
Well, I mean, that's what I said. The study that I saw was before Trump.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But, and in this study, he was a multi-millionaire, and one year he gave like 85 bucks to charity total. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, like the splitting of the mind, or how minds are wired differently, and compassion. Like the left will see compassion for illegal aliens, and the right sees compassion for American citizens that the illegal aliens are infringing on, and that how as taxpayers we have to pay for them, like we're the ones footing the bill.
Well, I think that's where some of the conscientiousness comes into play. I think the right has a lot of they place a lot of value on the individual and on merit. So there's a lot of respect for those who deserve, and they deserve it because they've earned it. So there's compassion for what is true justice, and fairness in that sense, not fairness in this contrived sense of equity, which that just made me so Biden said that I know I'm enthusiastic, I can't even speak, but Biden said that he's going to make equity the forefront of all policy. And I don't, the fact that he says that, this is what's so astounding to me, is that we're seeing the brazenness of these types of actions and statements that I don't know if he thinks people really don't understand. That's antithetical to everything for which this nation stands. We stand for equality, equal opportunity, not equity. And I don't know if he really thinks that people just don't know the difference, and he's feels so emboldened to say something like that. But that is absolutely the antithesis of everything that this country stands for. We are not about equity.
I think he's just saying what the what the far left tells him to say. They're just putting, executive orders in front of him. He doesn't know what they are. He's just signing. He's signing and regurgitating.
Oh yeah, and you can hear him say, "What am I signing?" He's now on like number 40, by the way. Oh, so I posted this video of him literally saying, they were asking him about taxes. Did you see this? Yeah, and they were asking him
around where he says only a dictator.
Yeah, so he said, they were asking about the taxes, and he said, well, I have to get the votes. And then he said, I have these friends, these, Republican and, even some Democrat friends who tell me, we just have to do everything by executive order. If you can't get it done, just do an executive order. And he said, we live in a democracy. We need consensus. I can't just do executive order. That would be a dictator. Says the man who's just done 40 and counting. He's done 4 executive orders in a matter of days than Trump did in his whole presidency. But Trump was a dictator. Yeah, explain that to me. I'm very confused. I don't understand how any of this works anymore.
Republicans need to wake up and start playing by their rules.
I think so. I very much think so. I think that's accurate. Yeah. Start playing by their rules, start holding them accountable, holding our representatives accountable. They are not our rulers. There's a reason that it's called legislation. They're laws. They're not rules. who makes rules? Rulers, dictators, not people who are elected officials. And I think that's something that really needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Earlier we were talking about Durham and I think his name's Kleinsman, who his sentencing was just announced, and he got probation and 400 hours of community service for altering a document that enabled the FBI to spy on Trump, which is insane.
Yeah.
He should have gotten prison time, and he basically tried to we talked about it earlier. I can't think what I was going to say now.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
you can go on though. I mean, I think it bears repeating.
I think it's just lame that he got probation when he was trying to put Carter Page away, for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that injustice.
Yes.
I hope we can edit that part out. Sorry.
Oh, no, not. I think it bears repeating. I think that people aren't, because there's so much information and so much injustice. I think that it's overwhelming. So I don't think people are really digesting, each instance and each account that is happening. And so they're just overwhelmed. It's like a barrage that they're being, stormed with. They keep getting hit with more and more, that I don't think people are realizing, each account of what is actually happening. So, when you ask about the fraud, it's like it becomes hard for people to list the litany, because if there was a way possible that you could possibly conceive or imagine, it was done. It was every single angle. So, when people say there's no evidence, I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is there's too much. It's like, where do you begin? The amount of evidence is astounding. And that takes a long time to present in a case. So you can't just whip it up, it takes a long time because there is so much of it.
And it has to be investigated.
Absolutely.
There can't be just 2 weeks to investigate this fraud before, the deadline. It's
right.
It's going to take long. It takes longer than that.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And so I think that is actually part of the problem. So I'm fine with repeating things for people to really understand it, and for it to really penetrate, just how, just the iniquitousness of what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do they fix it? I think there has to be some standard, like the absentee ballots.
Yep.
How there's no connection at all with the envelope to the signed ballot. So when they go back and they check the ballots, they're not checking the envelopes with them, because they've already thrown away the envelopes.
Right.
So they don't have a way to check the address on the envelope. They don't know who this ballot belongs to. So to me, I think that was one of the biggest.
Well, you saw
the voter fraud was committed. That was one of the biggest.
Absolutely, it was huge.
They got hundreds of, they got so many ballots with no signatures on the ballot, and also the envelopes. They don't even look at them. The ballots that came in that only had the president check, nothing else on it.
Nope. You saw what happened with Amazon, right? And he's saying he doesn't want mail-in ballots because they're not secure. But what happened? I thought this, the mail-in ballots were totally fine. We have COVID, and it was the most secure election in history. But it's not good enough now. Now all of a sudden we can't have mail-in ballots because they're not secure. Yeah, the hypocrisy is just astounding. It's like Newsom. We have to shut down, restaurants, and we have to lock down everyone. But I'm going to keep my winery open. I'm going to go to French Laundry. Perfectly fine. I guess, they must be immune. Maybe they have superpowers. I would like to have some of those personally, but they didn't.
Well, one thing that's curious about the whole Newsom recount thing is how, like, whenever there's a recount, you always see the petitions online. I haven't seen any online petitions for Newsom. I saw one link. Somebody sent me a link to it, and it was actually to download the hard copy, those list petitions like you see it at the grocery stores and that kind of thing.
Right.
It was to download that. It wasn't to fill it out. So it's really weird that there isn't an online petition that you can fill out. And I think it's unusual that it's taken this long to get them to the threshold. they have until March, and I think they will get there. But I know this is a left and right issue in California. The left is pissed off at him too.
Yeah.
And
Oh, this is bipartisan. I mean,
yeah, and
very few people are actually happy with Newsom.
yeah,
And
I just wonder why. And
why?
I don't know if this is a big tech thing, but I don't know why there aren't these online petitions that you can easily sign for it. I haven't seen any.
I actually haven't either. There have been a couple email, like, sent around, but I haven't seen like an open forum website where you can just go. That's something you should look into. I signed it by hand because I think that's part of the problem. I'm like, I want a physical pen, paper, signature,
Where did you do it? Your own, or did you
voting to go back to that? Pardon?
Where did you sign? Did you send it in yourself, or did you go?
I signed it
at the shop?
I signed it at a rally. I was at, one of the Stop the Steal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where I found it. And every time I go to one of these rallies, there have been,
Oh, nice.
I have had people send me though, and I can find that for you, the links that they've sent me online, but I just personally don't trust it. I want a physical, tangible, like here, my pen, paper. They can't switch the votes. They can't dominion it. I put that in quotes, dominion it. I don't think they use dominion for that. I'm really just using it figuratively. I think it's now a verb.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really not funny, but yeah. But the fact that I'm seeing it at every rally I go to indicates that, people are. I don't know anybody who's happy with Newsom. In fact, I know so many people who are not political at all, never gave politics any thought, oh, I don't care. And, they really didn't want to know anything about it. And Newsom has made them political because he's shut down their businesses, because, the whole mask mandate, because just of all the restrictions that have been placed on us in the past year and the hypocrisy of it. I think that's what's really getting to people. They're starting to wake up and see the injustice and how, it's rules for thee, not for me. And that, I think, Thomas Sowell, just who I love, I've decided I want him to be my honorary granddad. But he posted how, we should never have we should never have elected officials who are not accountable to the laws that they make, or rather legislators who are not accountable to the laws that they make. They don't have to abide by it. And it seems like they are all just, above the law. And that's really the problem. That's not our system. That is not how a constitutional republic works. These people are not above the law. But the problem is right now they are, and right now, everything that we keep saying is not true, unfortunately right now is true, because they're getting away with it. And that's what I don't have the answer for. I don't know how to stop this. Do you have any thoughts? How do we stop the injustice? How do we stop these people from getting away with literally murder? I mean, it's literal crimes against humanity.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I don't think there's going to be a forensic analysis of the voter fraud as there should be. So I think at this point, it's up to the state legislators to change their own elections, because they set the rules for their elections, right? It's up to each state. And I hope it's not going to happen in the blue states, but I hope in the red states, I hope they get rid of all not absentee ballots, but mail-in ballots. They should keep the absentee ones like they had before. They get rid of all the mail-ins. They should make voter ID mandatory.
Yeah.
So I think
I have to show ID to buy kombucha. I think that we should have ID to vote.
I think that's the way forward. I really don't have any hope in anything being properly, educated about the fraud and by fraud that happened. I don't think, I'm not optimistic about anything like that happening. But I think it's up for the red states to just, get rid of all that crap that happened in their states, like Georgia.
What bothers me, you keep saying red state. This should not be a partisan issue. people on
But
both
the
sides
blue
should be
states aren't going to
concerned
change
about. Well, they should be concerned because if we don't have free, fair, and transparent elections, we don't have a country.
I know, but they don't care. As long as their people win, they'll cheat. They don't care. So I'm not optimistic that any changes will happen in blue states, but it's the red states that, had we won Georgia, a red state, that would have helped. Arizona, that would have helped Trump. Nevada, I think might be purple, but that would have helped. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's definitely what we need to really enforce. We need to enforce election integrity. Absolutely. And we need to really be working on it very quickly because 2022 is coming up faster than it's going to be a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there needs to be a lot of action so that we can, start rectifying some of these atrocities. Yeah.
It makes me think of like how we are on par with a lot of the third world countries now. I never knew this kind of election fraud could happen here.
Yeah.
And in the Philippines, I have a friend whose family was in politics and running for some position, and they were praying that he won, and they were praying that he won by a huge margin.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, why does that matter? I kind of laughed, like it seemed kind of grieved me. And they told me that they needed to overcome any fraud that might happen, any voter fraud. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that happens there. That's what happened here.
Well, yeah.
So now we're in the same position that if we don't correct the fraud that happened, margins. That's what we're going to have to hope and pray for, is massive margins.
Well, the reality,
overcome the fraud that we know it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is it's been happening here for so long. It's just that this time, the proportions of the magnitude of the fraud was so astronomical. And I think it really was because it was such a tremendous landslide that they had to combat it with, just this overwhelming fraud.
And this time, I think there was some of these swing states used the same formula. They did the same things in fraud as other states. So, for example, shutting down the counting in the middle of the night, and these mysterious votes come in that were for Biden in ways that, like, for example, in Philadelphia, there's one precinct in Philadelphia where 100,000 votes came in, or over 100,000 came in, and 100% of them were for Biden, where we know that Trump got 18% of the black vote. This is a heavy black, precinct. Mm-hmm. Some of them, at least one vote, would have been for Trump. How does he get 100%? So things like that.
Not statistically, mathematically possible.
The water line that broke, that ended up never breaking in Georgia, stopped down voting for. The glitches that have never been, educated or investigated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's truly astounding. I feel like we're stuck in like a dystopian tale. I personally want my money back. Yeah. I didn't sign up for this, so I want out. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for doing this. This has been really great to, hear your thoughts on all of it. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this was really, really awesome. Yeah, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can buy your book. Yeah.
My book, Ghost Trail, is on Amazon. It's a military spy thriller, and I also have a sci-fi novelette on Amazon as well called Reptilian. You can either search Amazon, Brian, Tyree, Reptilian, Ghost Trail, you'll find it.
Yes, we'll have to do another one and talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.